Good.
Sir, I'm doing good, man. How about you?
I'm good, thank you. Sorry I'm late, bro.
No, no, you good. You good, man. It's all good. It's all good. So, yeah, my name is Tarami Reedus. Um, I run a brand called Drumz Uhuru, and I'm working with a another organization called In the Shed. I don't know. Did I send you the link?
Sent me the link, yeah. The
Okay, yeah,
transport.
yeah. So definitely, and we just trying to grow, trying to build, trying to expand our horizons and what we can do musically, what we can do business wise, etc. So this interview is part of that. So yeah, I have some questions. Um,
Cool.
let's get into it. So, how did you get introduced to the djembe?
Got introduced to the Djembe. Um, First I started with talking drum, the tama. My granddad used to play the tamani. And then I was around the age of 3. I was given one. Then my mum bought me my first djembe when I was 8. I was used to the djembe, just seeing it around at different naming ceremonies and stuff as a kid. Growing up around people doing their naming ceremonies, marriages, seeing the djembe here, there, and everywhere. Also going back home on just family trips and seeing it. They
Yeah,
saw the propensity for music. That's why my granddad gave me a talking drum. Then as it progressed, my mum bought me a djembe, and the rest is history.
that's what's up, man. That's awesome. So home for you is Senegal, right?
All about Nigeria,
Yeah, beautiful, man. That's wonderful. So at what point did you realize that djembe music was something that you wanted to dedicate your life to?
quite late on, to be fair, probably around 20, 19, 20. I grew up here. I grew up in the UK. I grew up in London. So um, Djembe music wasn't something that we saw growing up, usually outside of traditional settings or things that you listen to at home. So I always had an interest for culture and stuff. But, as a young black boy growing up in the hood as well, I was geared to more so fitting in. I played basketball for a bit to a semi-professional level, played for my university, I played for my school. And so I was kind of focused on that, but music was always in the background for me. It was always really interesting. It's when I got to university, or just before university. I don't in the States, I know it works with you've got middle school, high school, etc., etc. For us, it works from elementary, which will be primary school, secondary school. Then you have 2 years of college and then university. And when I was in college, which is you call from 16 to 18, when I was in college, I really kind of fell back in love with culture and music again and language and the art around it and wanting to share that with people and knowing that there was a huge amount of knowledge to be shared, not only with my people in the diaspora, with the world in general, and also just being understanding due to my own personal experiences with race and racism, understanding that knowing where you come from can also root you in identity. And so that music was the turning point for that. And when I got to university, I went to university for the sake of, everyone must go to university. You must go to uni. It's the way to do it. I hated it. And I came under the tutelage of an amazing Djembe player called Sidiki Dambele when I was in Manchester. And he was like, you have a talent. At the point, I could dance, I was singing, I was playing dunun, I was drumming, play a bit guitar, I could do everything. He was like, but Djembe, come on, you've got the hand for it, just keep playing. Because I was a dunun player first. And he said, nah, just look at Djembe, look at him playing. And I lived in his house for a while as well. And from there, he was like, you can do this full time. If you want to be a musician, step into it. Like, don't be on the fence. If you're gonna do it, do it. And you know, from that point, university wasn't serving me. I was doing media studies and art direction, and I was doing it just for the sake of a diploma, for the sake of something I'm probably not gonna use. And I was got to the point where I was getting more gigs playing and traveling than I was getting to lectures. So I just said, respectfully, fuck it. Let me do what I'm gonna do with music. And Alhamdulillah, we're here, what, 13 years later,
Yeah,
still thriving, providing for family and doing all of that with music as well.
that's beautiful, man. That's a beautiful story. Um, I know I've heard Weedy Brahma say about Sidiki Dembele that he has one of the fastest hands on djembe ever. So that's amazing that you got a chance to study with him, to sit with him and learn, so much history, so much wisdom, so much culture at his feet, man. That's beautiful.
1,000%. Siddiqui is not just one of the fastest, he's probably one of the cleanest. in terms of technique. He's probably the Djembefola that knows the most at the moment in his generation about not just Djembe, but the folklore surrounding it. And that inquisitiveness that he has is something that was very much passed on to me and fueled my own inquisitiveness that I was unable to articulate. And his furthering in his journey with articulateness and inquisitive, I'm always learning, helped me find words to my own and helped me hone my own in a certain way to allow me to do what I do today.
That's amazing. So my next question with that point is, what makes somebody a Djembefola? And how is that term being expanded upon, right?
Djembefola, Djembefola in Maninga, yes, means Djembe player, but Djembe player is more than that. You cannot be a Djembe player and not know how to fix your instrument. You cannot be a Djembe player and not respect people. You cannot be a Djembe player, not know the instruments and the rhythm. It's not just about playing solo. It's about knowing the whole fabric of what makes it up. Mamadi Keita did speak, for example, about his master. And he said his master wasn't the greatest Djembe player in the world. It wasn't that he's the fastest or the strongest Djembe player of his peers, but his knowledge of the folklore was unparalleled. I respect Djembe players that are quick and fast and everything. But if I tell you to play Soli and you cannot tell me what Soli means, if I tell you to play Soli and you cannot tell me the songs that go with Soli, if I tell you to play Jansa, you cannot tell me the songs that go with Jansa. If I ask you how to bring Jansa into a rhythm and follow the song and you have to do Primpetim, Primpetim, Pataba, you don't know Jansa, that's not Jansa. If I ask you to what is Kasa? What does a Kasa look like? You'll be thinking, what's the rhythm? No, the Kasa is something. This is what Djembe is about. A griot should be able to sing, and I don't need to hear the call. I should be able to know the song and enter with the time. The Djembefola is a musical director. The Djembefola is a leader. The Djembefola is somebody that can stand in front of people and direct them where to go without hesitation. And so that's why it comes with so many different like layers. It's not just about the instrument. It's about your character and how you carry yourself. You know, Djembefola normally would stay in his master's house the way you learn traditionally in that formation, which I had a sneak peek into, was that you go into a master's house and say, I want to be a Djembe player. The Djembe player is, what do I do? And the Djembe master takes you in as a child. He feeds you, he clothes you, he gives you money to do what you need to do. He gives you money to give back to the family. In the same way, you wash his clothes, you cook their meals, you sweep the compound in the way that you would a father would a son or the child with his parent. And then you move forward and you go and you start by carrying his bag. Then you go from his bag to playing Kongoni. Then from Kongoni, you go to Pidi. Then from Pidi, you go to first accompaniment. Then you go from Sangbang, from there to Sangbang to Dunu Solo. Then you go to Djembe. All of these things is to teach you that there's a root and everything in life has like a cyclical kind of effect. You must go through this cycle to be fired and prepared for that process. And that's a Djembefola. And even a Djembefola and a musician are two different things.
Okay. Wow. So it's like a universe in and of itself. It's an entire like being. Okay. That's beautiful. So kind of switching gears a little bit to your work with the Balimaya Project. You touched on the differences between being a Djembefola, being a musician. My question is, what were some of your influences and your inspirations for creating your latest work when the dust settles?
All my influences were my personal story growing up. London, inner city London, urban London, Black London, if you want to put it that way. Djembe music and Manding music, of course, and Manding folklore, but innovating it and taking it to a way that sits well with my experience as a diasporan. I didn't grow up in the continent. I grew up here. And so, in as much as Djembe is part of my identity, so is jazz, so is blues, so is reggae, so is dancehall, so is Afrobeat, so is high life. And so is cinematic music and taking those things that I love, like cinema and film, and the depth of emotion, how it's portrayed visually and sonically. How can I take that and take Djembe to another level, right? And then listening to musicians like Weedy, people like Weedy, people like Sidiki have changed the way Djembe is played has changed the way people perceive it. The perception of djembe is that across the world, I'm talking not just in the djembe community, but the perception of djembe is that it's another percussion instrument that is used for drum circles and healing and all these frivolous things that the West can take it for. Whereas the djembe is a very intentional instrument. It's very clear in its role. That percussion that we put in the West, djembe shouldn't be in that box. Djembe takes a huge sense of mastership, expertise, and skill that's taken to lead something. And I wanted it to be very clear that djembe is the bridge. Djembe is the forefront instrument. Djembe arrangement can inform the way we approach jazz. It can inform the way in which we approach ethereal music. It can be ethereal and it can also be djembe. It can be something that takes you to another plane, but it can also be inspired by djembe and mande. And so when the dust settles on a surface level, sonically is that. But then a huge experience was just trying to create a soundscape for my own personal lived experience, grief, reckoning, an understanding of self, identity, um, anger, resentment, all those things that make me up, all those things that make up a lot of Black men today, and taking that and putting a sound to it.
That's profound, brother. That's profound, man. So, how have you been able to, I guess, maintain your authenticity as a Djembefola, and a musician in this current climate that we're in?
I think it's been intentional, but it's also been natural as well. I think once you're authentic with yourself, you know where your limits are, then you play within your limits and you do what you can with the capacity you have, right? Weedy will do what he can with the experience that Weedy has. Weedy will do what he has with the heritage that he has, the skills at his disposal, and therefore it will be authentic to him because he's playing with himself and the sound that comes from himself, and therefore create a signature sound that is Weedy Brahima. And he's ultimately come to the things of like the Hands of Time, which is a very authentic Weedy sound, right? Siddiqui will do the same with his own music. And it was important for me to sit in and say, what does Yahael sound like? Who is Yahael? And being accepting of that, knowing my capacity, knowing what I don't know, as well as what I know, I'm working within the realms of what I'm comfortable with. I was able to say, okay, these are my limits. How can I push them in a way that is authentic, that's different, and that's still me? And I still have a space to grow from. And I think that's how, I guess, as a Djembefola, as a student, as a band leader, I've been able to just maintain self. And it's also about the connections and the people around me. Who best can I work with that will bring my sound and what I want to hear forward? Because I'm not a guitar player, I'm not a bass player, I'm not a horn player. I need to have people around me that I believe in their ability that can just bring out the sound that I need to hear because I can't do it by myself.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And that leads me to my next question. Balimaya Project is such a dope concept. I love y'all's music. It's a 16-piece band, and with you being the leader, that's not easy. So what is your approach to leadership? What has been your journey, your experience with being a band leader and leading the Balimaya Project?
So today, leading Balimaya is still a lesson, still learning, You still learn, you still have pitfalls and things where you go, okay, and you're leading people that are changing, that are leaders in their own rights, in their homes, with their own projects. They're not people that just sit in and they work with just Balimaya exclusively. They have their own bands. They work with so many other people. Some of them are musical directors in their own right. And so I think it's just about understanding people. It's been helpful because I'm working with friends, working with people that I spar with on a daily, that I would spar with outside of music. And I'm working with people that I respect. I'm working with people that are older than me, And it's a continuous conversation. It's a continuous something that's reciprocal. It can be hard because yes, a lot of the heavy lifting, whether it's financially, whether it's logistically, whether it's time-wise, all of it's coming from my side. But learning where to delegate, learning where I can step in and ask for advice and learn has been the pivotal part of of learning about leadership and stepping into that role. It's hard. It's really difficult. But I think just maintaining respect, um, and understanding that you're still dealing with people has been the thing that's kept us together for so long and keeps us working and keeps us getting us also we maintain the respect and friendship of each other. It's not always perfect. There's times when it falls off. Things happen where you're like, rah, we need to reconfigure and recalibrate how we're moving through the space and navigating our relationship with each other. But ultimately, um, the respect prevails because we've continued to keep a line of communication open. Doesn't mean that people haven't stepped to one side or we've had to let other people go because it's no longer working. But it's being recognizant of that, and so you don't waste time and spoil relationships past a certain point. Let's keep to true too.
Yeah, yeah, humility is critical in all
Thousand,
facets of life.
thousand,
Yeah.
thousand. So humility is important, but also knowing who you are. Don't humble yourself to the point that you step on your own head. You know, as we say back home, don't let somebody pack shit into your mouth to prove that it's not smelling. You know, it's this is it. You just have to take time, be humble, but with that humility, understanding it's a choice. It's a choice to be humble. You can be who you want to be as well in that humility and acknowledge who you are and what you bring to the table. And when everyone understands that space, then you move with grace and together.
Word up, bro. That's what's up.
Well,
So what is your process for composing, for creating? What does that look like? What does that feel like?
it looks like a whole lot of different voice notes and voice memos at 3 a.m. And and I listen to stuff and I'm just like, what am I talking about the night before? But it comes to my head and usually it will start with a bass line, a central horn line and theme or a specific key that I like. And then arrangements will just come. As Djembe players, you know how it is. Like if you're in something all the time, there's always something new that you're thinking. But then how do I bend it? I'll hear an arrangement that I'll be like, okay, that sounds like a djembe arrangement. But then how do I bend it so it sounds weird? How do I bend it so it sounds awkward? I'm like, ooh, that sounds different. And that's how I do it, you know. And that's been one of the key things that arrangements are um different from what you would hear in djembe language, because I'm not just using djembe language to inform the music. The djembe is a leader, but we're taking the djembe and doing more with it than outside of djembe. So djembe and finding those djembe dunum patterns that go well with that bass and horn pattern, and then filling in the gaps. And then the next process is then I have these bones, or sometimes I have a finished piece. And it's like, guys, play this for me. And then them playing that finished piece, I'm like, okay, I can hear it with the actual instruments. There's a gap here. Or sometimes I'll take the bones and someone will be like, what about this? I'm like, yeah, that's cool. Let's arrange it and put it here. And so it can be quite an individual, but also quite a collective process as well, where I'll take bones of something and the guys will, with that inspiration, then be like, oh, this is as a guitar player, I can hear this. I'm like, I didn't think of that. Or the horns, I can hear this harmony. I didn't think of that. And I'm not a horn player, so they'll hear about their harmony. Or I might take horn players and they'll be like, bro, we can't breathe. You have to think of the realities of the instrument. And I'll be like, oh yeah, but it sounds like this, yeah, but not singing. It's a horn part. They need to breathe. And so they'll chop it up and make it sit, and it will actually sit better and flow. And these are the harmonies that will give it effect. And so it's a process that can differ from piece to piece. And when did I settle? Season of Baraka was complete, and it was complete. It was something that I'd said from A to Z. This is how it's gonna go. Here you go. You just play it as I've asked. Whereas A Prayer for Our Parents was quite collective. The melody wasn't written by me. And from that melody, I was like, okay, this horn line sounds nice. And then the bass player said, oh, but this bridge would sound nice. Then I said, on top of that bridge, this is where we can put a swing feel and put that, and flute and kick can go back to back and follow each other. And then to bring it to then, you hear it and you go, this is a good idea. Then that's when the ideas start flowing. And so, yeah, it happens.
Yeah, man, that's amazing. So I got one more question for you, Yahael. As a Djembefola,
Mhm.
as leader of Balimaya,
Mhm.
as a Black man in this world,
Mhm.
what are your goals and your visions for yourself as a musician, as a cultural worker, ambassador, as a griot and jelly.
Okay, so I'm not a griot. I don't come from a griot
Okay,
family.
so my bad.
Cool. It's cool. Why it's important. I know people have said that I'm a griot, and I said, "Well, where did you heard that I'm a griot? I'm not a griot. I'm not. Yeah, I'm horror. I'm noble. So, uh, but griot culture, of course, because we are Camara. If you go into the history of it, we're all Nyamakala. So we are part of the group of castes that griots belong to, right? So Nyamakala is the umbrella, and the jelly are one of the four Nyamakala. Of the Nyamakala, you have Numu, which are blacksmith. You have Garange, which is leather workers. You have Fina, which are wordsmith. Kamara will fall on the Fina. Okay. Every jelly has their Fina. Okay. Every griot has their wordsmith. So normally when you see a griot singing, you hear someone going Namu, Namu, Namu is the Fina that's backing up what the griot is saying. If the griot is absent, then the Fina can talk on history. But I didn't grow up with Fina. I didn't grow up with my dad, so I didn't grow up with that, the words, the orator kind of family. I didn't grow up with it at all. But in terms of caste and blood, that's what it is. So I'm not a griot, but we are still artisans in that sense. And the role as anyone that's involved in culture and the perpetuation of that culture within the diaspora and the world, I think is just to have a responsibility, a responsibility that is tangible, a legacy that is tangible. With something, what I'm doing with Balimaya Project is to show that Black men in Europe are interested in what we're doing. Black people in general are interested in our culture still. We haven't abandoned it. We haven't left it. I think the though we are different in the US, the UK, France, wherever the different diasporas may be, South America or the Caribbean, our goal is the same, and our obstacles are a lot more similar than we think. You know, the experiences that we have are a lot more similar than we think, and we still battle with the articulation of what racism is. We still battle with um, imbalanced kind of hierarchies. We still battle with white supremacy. And what's beautiful about Balimaya Project is that this is a band of Black men that is intergenerational, that is intercontinental, that have a plethora of experiences that can come together and create something that we believe is beautiful, but very much rooted in ourselves and it's real. And I think my goal is, inshallah, to carry that realness to its extent. If it's no longer real, then we leave it. But take that realness and take us as authentic as we are and take it further in terms of not maybe fame or fortune, but in terms of legacy, that other people can be inspired by what we do, that we are able to go into places of higher education and provide an articulation of our experience that is unique and authentic, that has come from the mouths of the people on the ground, that has come from a grassroots place, that my daughters can look at and say, yeah, this is what is this is where I'm from. This is the language I speak. I'm proud of it. And this is my identity, and no one can take that away from me. And this it can be a soundtrack to that as well. Providing a soundscape is so important. We've looked at in different elements of history throughout Black history. We looked at jazz, which provides a soundscape to the time. We look at blues, we look at gospel, we look at Gullah Geechee music, you look at classical Black composers. On the continent, we look at Afrobeats, we look at high life, even Djembe music. A lot of the rhythms that we call are traditional, they're not traditional. They're traditional because we've made it a traditional folklore. Rhythms like Kapacha. Kapacha was developed in the 60s and is now in Ivory Coast. It's a big fetish. And people say it's our tradition, it's our fetish. In 1959, it didn't exist, but it became something for institutional change and it's become culture and folklore. We have music that goes with the times. And in the UK, we had Lovers Rock, which was like the Caribbean diaspora that came in, and through their parties, they had a huge influx of Jamaicans, especially music that came in, and was a soundtrack to the times. If you haven't watched Steve McQueen's series, The Small Axe, then you should, because it gives you a line into post Windrush Black society in the UK, which is very similar to the way things were working in the US at certain time. And they providing the soundtrack to those times for us as a West African diaspora is important. It's not just Afrobeats, it's not just high life, it's also Manding music. It's also Mbala. It's also these different genres that we're all coming from and bringing to the fore. I think that's so important. And that's my goals, to really just, yeah, be as authentic as possible and provide an atmosphere of authenticity.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said, Yahael. That's all the questions that I have, man. Thank you so much for your time. It's truly an honor to sit
No
down
problem.
with you and speak with you. And thank you so much for the work that you're doing for Djembe, for music,
No
for
problem.
Black culture, for Black people, man. Thank you so much.
You too, man. Love for everything that you're doing on your side as well and inspiring others and trying to collate different perspectives is very important. So, man, good
Yes,
luck with
sir.
everything.
Thank you, man. All right. Till next time, bro. Be easy. Enjoy your day.
Love yourself. Love.